WebEx recording. As long as you can download the WebEx player, it's a fairly reasonably sized file for the duration you get, so we'll be able to make that available to you. So this session is intended to be first off, show you what the vehicle clearance tools do, but then show you how they're set up and how you manage them. So a little bit of a show about the application of the vehicle clearance tools and then a little bit of a drill down. So let's have a quick chat about the intention of the driveway clearance tools and why we put them together. So this was sort of a dream of mine, to have driveway clearance checking into the areas with a driveway. You're designing a road and you've got a polyline out to the side which represents a driveway centre line or edge, and you want to know whether or not that driveway is going to have a clearance issue when you run a vehicle across it. It was always a big issue when I worked in local government, and I distinctly remember printing out 20:1 scaled plans so I could get my transparency out, check it, and then start drafting manually a driveway that would comply with clearance requirements. This tool really automates that part of the process. As a byproduct of our driveway clearance tools, you can now create any old string you like, any road design, and you can do a clearance check of any vehicle across there. And I'll talk later about some innovative site distance tools that people have thrown in using the driveway clearance checker. So the whole idea of the driveway clearance tools was introduced to check for driveway crossings. However, what it does is allows you to create your own shape for a vehicle, and that vehicle is a rigid vehicle, so it's got 2 points of connection to your design, and that shape gets run along the design. And the software will identify when you bottom out or nosedive or tail dive onto the design. It uses the Australian standards approach for calculating clearances, so we're not really simulating the curvature of a wheel, we're treating it as a pin. Some people have identified that can cause issues when you've got quite a detailed layback shape. There's a couple of approaches to, I guess, smoothing that out, and there's certainly an opportunity for us to do something different looking to the future. Clearance can be checked on any string, as I said, and the dedicated driveway tools, which you can see the interface for that on the right here, uses polylines. You then make a connection to your road design, and it extracts cross sections through that road design. You also connect the other end of your driveway to a surface. Now, I've just been alerted that maybe I'm not sharing my screen very well. So hopefully you're seeing panel 2 of my PowerPoint. So the interface you're looking at, this sort of screenshot, identifies the main components of the driveway tools. You should use them in order. You basically put your polylines for your driveways on a layer, turn them into driveways, and it's at that point you attach them to the road. And also the other end of your driveway, where your driveway hits normally the property boundary or a location inside the property where you're prepared to regrade. That becomes your outside end of the design extents. Within that driveway zone, you can design whatever you like. You can put in low points, high points, vertical curves to try and get your clearance sorted out. Most importantly, you can check vehicle clearance on any string, which is the first thing I'll sort of show. Okay, moving on. In terms of the pure driveway design process, this is the interface you'll see when you make a driveway, and I'll take you through all of the tools in there. It is polyline driven. You can use as many polylines as you like to reflect the driveway. So sometimes your driveway is quite complex and your left and right side of your driveways need to be graded differently, and you can actually check clearances at any point along your driveway. I will talk more about the way design setup, but this panel you see down the bottom allows you to relate polylines as driveway gradings to road design and to the existing surface. From a more Puritan's perspective, once you've created your driveways, or even before that, you can always check your clearances. Once you create your driveways, there's a dedicated compliance check tool for driveways, and sort of the image of that's on the right there. It's going to highlight where it's run along your driveway strings and it's found a clash. Sometimes the sensitivity of that is higher than you want, which we will work on in the software, but it's certainly a great way to quickly identify driveways you should review. When you're in the vertical grading editor, you can elect to show vehicle clearance along your string. It doesn't matter whether it's a driveway string or a pure road string or any other string that you've drawn. Okay, so if you want to simulate going down into a basement car park and there's steps in that basement car park, you can do that by creating an alignment, turning it into a string, and running the vehicle checker on it. So it doesn't matter what you're designing, you can always check in terms of editing and stuff, but we'll come back to that. Let's start pushing in a little bit of a design here to have a play with. Okay, so I actually have a road design here. Most of you will recognise this. This is our timeless classic of Marin Street. What I want to do is just introduce you to the driveway tools. So in terms of the driveway tools, they're all sitting under this panel called driveway. You'll see down the bottom that there are two settings controls. One is the idea of making a shape, which is used to tell the software you'd like a certain layback. So if you work in local government or if you're doing subdivisions or any sort of road design, you'll know that you've got a strict curb shape that you like to design, but then once you hit the driveway, you'll normally lay that down into what's called a layback, stretch it out. For us, we called that making shapes because you might want to, at the other end of your driveway, where it connects to the property, you might want to put in a footpath or have a flat area representing a garage or something like that. The clearance templates allows you to build your own clearance design for a vehicle. So a truck, certainly we've got the 2 Australian standard vehicles in there, but you can design it your own vehicle shape and route that along your driveways to see what happens. I'll show you how that works later on. Okay, so we've got a road design here. I'll just quickly open it up with a vertical grading window. So we've got a road. It's running from east to west, west to east, so from left to right. If I right-click somewhere, we'll see that there's some variability in the cross section. So I've applied some super elevation to this. I've also pushed the right-hand side out onto an alignment, so you'll see it sort of widens out, comes back. So there's crossfall changes happening. There's also some width changes happening to that road. Now, in terms of checking for clearance, there's an icon on the vertical grading editor that allows you to pick a vehicle shape that you make and run that along your design. So the ones that come with the software is the B85 and the B99. We did have a generous donation from one of our customers with some clearance checking that they'd done. So they've been quite innovative in applying the vehicle tool as a site distance checking tool. I'm going to check it every 1 metre along the road, and I want to also draw the vehicle on the design. So in simple terms, you pick a vehicle to run through, how often you want to check that vehicle for clearance, what to do at vertical curves, so it splits it up into 10 segments to check. Do you want to show the forward and the reverse movement of the vehicle, or just forward or just reverse? And then do you want to draw the vehicle on the long section on the vertical grading window? The most useful one I find is showing the vehicle where it clashes, but probably the sexiest one is mouse forwards and reverse. If I just click OK to this, what you'll see is I'm now running a vehicle along the design. You'll also see when we sort of zoom in and have a look, there's a red line and an orange line which you can't see. You can change the colours of those, but they are showing you the clearance of that vehicle. If I just change the exaggeration here to say 2, you'll see that we've got a vehicle and we're pushing it along the design. So anytime, any string, you can run a quick vehicle clearance check. The clearance check is dynamic. IPs into the design. Actually see that it updates what's going on with that vehicle. If I click on this little icon on the left-hand side here, I can start moving that vehicle again against the design, and you can see that it's actually showing you where you're going to have clashes in a forward sense and a rear sense. So these little triangles that you see are actually highlighting where the vehicle's hitting the design. When you move your IPs around, you can smooth out those issues. So you'll see I can push and get to a certain tolerance point, and then the software starts saying, hey, we're going to clash bottom out here and bottom out the other side. So once you push a vehicle along a design, you can then run that vehicle along and check. But these little triangles that you see, they're a highlight that you're going to have a problem with running a particular vehicle along your design. You can certainly come in and change that vehicle type. So if I want to check the B99, I can check what the B99 is going to do. And it's going to be closer, but it's still going to work in this case. So this next one's pretty cool in terms of clearance checking. You can download from our website, from the Advanced Road Design blog, an enhanced series of vehicle templates. I'll show you how to make your own. But if we were trying to run a truck along here, 60 kilometres an hour, I know that you've got downhill controls and uphill controls that differentiate this. But if we quickly just assumed a certain side distance control, we could actually run a quick vehicle clearance check. So this might seem odd to look at, but what the software is doing is it's showing you a 0.2 height here and a 2.4 height the other end. So we're running sort of a truck clearance in one direction and in the other direction. And the software is drawing some clearance lines here to show whether or not we're going to get sight distance for our truck running along the design. All right, so you can be quite intelligent on how you use this. This is quite a sweet way to do some clearance checking for sight distance as opposed to for a traditional sort of run-of-the-mill check on vehicle clearance. All right, so that's sort of showing you that on any string we can apply a clearance shape and do a check. But let's have a look at it in the context of a driveway. So we want to check some driveways here. I've deliberately created a funny sort of design pad here for us to check against for a garage. But in the basic sense, on the south side, I actually have a polyline for where I want the driveway to stop designing. So I'm going to fake in some driveways in it, but this is my property boundary. This is the extent. I can't design the driveway past here. Okay. On the northern side, I'm just going to set a notional width, and we'll play around with that on the northern side later on. But if you have a property boundary and it's not a constant offset from your road centre line, the best bet is to draw polylines both sides and use those as your constraints. Your driveway, in essence, if I was to notionally draw a polyline here, if this was a driveway centre line or a driveway edge, basically I would want to hook the driveway onto the edge of the road as a design constraint, and I'd also want to stop designing my driveway at this point here, which represents my property boundary. And I can do whatever I want in between. I might apply a standard layback here to describe layback. I might design the levels of the footpath coming through here to accommodate what I need in order to get to the property. Now, a driveway is just a vertical clearance check. At this stage in the equation, we don't actually model it beyond letting you see and confirm and plot out the fact that vertically it's going to work. With the driveway tools, the first thing you should do is set a layer, and you pick the string you want to create a layer for. Now, Advanced Road Design wants to look for a certain layer, so it will then create that layer and make that layer current. You can draw any polylines you like, wherever you want. What you need to do is just put them on this layer to relate them to the string that you're trying to design. So I'm going to draw myself a polyline here for a driveway. Now the driveway can have curves in it, can be as long as you like. As soon as I press enter, it's going to then open up the driveway configuration, so the driveway settings. Now these are overarching settings for the driveway I make now and the driveways of the future. You can edit individual driveways to change the behavior of how that driveway kicks. Let's just look at one driveway for the moment. The layer, okay, that's the layer we drew our polyline on. And then you've got a code to connect to. Now this is the code off the main road, okay? So we're connecting to the main road to a certain code. So it's going to trace the road crossfall and the road shape all the way up to the invert of the edge of the road. You can then apply a standard, I guess, template at the edge of that, and we call that a shape. And I'll show you how to make these, but I'm going to apply an 80mm height rise with a 30mm lift, 750 width. So it's quite a generous, deep layback. You'll see as well at the other end of the equation, so the other end of the driveway, you can establish and apply a shape to apply from the end of the driveway. So the end of the driveway is where you connect it back to the existing surface. Okay, so when I say the end, I really mean the end of the design of the driveway. So when you draw a polyline that goes past the property boundary, that's good, you should do that. But once you hit that property boundary connection point, from there on in, it's going to wrap itself onto a certain surface that you get to pick. Okay, so it's going to drain shape would be a little footpath you want to put from the property boundary outwards, or maybe a flat garage or some shape like that. Now, on the left-hand side, you need to specify a width for where the property boundary is, where the driveway design stops. So I'm notionally going to set that at 10 metres on that side because I don't have a polyline over there. On the right-hand side, which is for us the south side, I can specify a width, or I can tick this box and pick a polyline. So I'm going to grab this polyline and tell the software that polyline represents where the driveway design stops. So that sets up how the driveway connects, how it connects to the design, how it connects to the existing conditions. In between is the bit that you design. If we go to the design settings, in here you need to tell the software what vehicles you want to check for clearance. Okay, so you can just check one vehicle or multiples. You can make your own vehicle clearance shapes. We'll go through that. You can also choose to show more than one surface on your vertical grading editor window for your driveway. So I'll just tickle on the design as well so we can see that. If I click on Create Driveways, what I've done is just turned this polyline into a driveway. If I draw more polylines on that layer and I run the Create Driveways tool, then I'll be creating more driveways. Okay, so once I've established my driveway properties, my driveway conditions, I can then go and make lots of polylines. And as soon as I run this tool, the Create Driveways tool, then what I'll do is apply these settings, which I've already established, across to all of those other polylines. So silently, what the software's done is it's going to turn those polylines into strings, driveway strings. The way to see them is to run this tool, which is the vertical grading design. I'll do this now. We'll come back to the compliance check. So I'm going to open up one driveway, which is the first one we created, inside the vertical grading editor window. So This is me looking at the vertical design of that one driveway. You'll see that there's a tracker, which is what we expect. There's a shape in here, and then once we get out to this, we've got a series of IPs that sit on the surface. So I'm just going to make this vertical grading window bigger so we can look at it in more detail. So, excuse me. Any IPs that I try and edit up to the invert, it's going to tell me I cannot do that because I've locked them on. Any IPs I try to edit after the property boundary, it's going to say, sorry, Shane, you said you wanted to connect those in. What happens in between is totally up to me, though. If we have a look at what the software has done, it's actually added from the invert, it's added a lip and then a layback. Okay, so this little shape here, these two lines, these three IPs, I guess, or two IPs, they represent a standard layback that I've applied for this particular driveway and for all the driveways initially. If I change my exaggeration to, say, 2 times exaggeration, so I flatten it out a bit, what I'm going to do is check the driveway clearance. This shape at the start here, coming off the road, okay, the bit at the end, attaching to the existing. If I click on Select Driveway here, I'm going to run the B99 vehicle across this. I'm going to check clearances 200 mil. So every 0.2 of a metre, I'm going to do a clearance check. The sensitivity of this, if you make it very, very, very tight, it'll be slow because there'll be lots of calculations. But this actually lets you almost avoid going down into that notch because you're assuming a wheelbase. So it'll sort of assume the wheels every 200 mil along. I'm going to run clash positions. I actually do mouse forwards and reverse. I click OK. And there's my vehicle moving over that design. So you can see with the red line, we actually don't have a clearance problem with this particular driveway. Now, let's do a little bit of a check here. What would happen if I opened up my main road and I started playing around with the main road? So if we look at and think about road reconstruction, here's my main road design. I'm deciding that I want to play around with that center line, lift it up, lower it down. What you'll see is that your driveways that you have open, you can view what's happening with those as you alter your design. Okay, so as I change that design surface and I start moving it up and down, I'm having an impact on not just that driveway, but every driveway in the run. Okay, so that's one aspect of editing your driveway. The one that you're probably less likely to be able to do, certainly in a road reconstruction sense, would be to move your driveway alignment. So you can graphically redesign your driveway alignment here to try and get a better result for your vertical grading. Okay, so you can change your road design and you can also change your driveway run through, okay, your driveway alignment. There are two ways to edit the design. From a vertical perspective, you are able to add vertical IPs anywhere you like inside that design zone for your driveway. Okay, so you are able to add in IPs and remove IPs to improve the driveway condition. Okay, so quite often you need to get in and start putting plates in your driveway. The tools are here. Okay, so in between your layback end and your property extents, you can be the designer and fix up the grading. Okay, you can also fix up your road design to improve your driveway entry conditions. Now we'll come back to looking at individual driveways, but I can actually open up as many driveways as I want, and I can review each of those driveways by turning on the vehicle checking at the increment that I want to check at. Okay, so I can actually open up more than one driveway, driveway grading, and have a look at each of them. There is a tool in here called a compliance check. Now, the idea of the compliance check is to run through each of the driveways that you've designed, so each of the polylines that you've got in there, and check whether or not you're going to have any clashes, whether you're going to have any issues. Now, what it's telling me in this case is that each chain edge, checking the B85 and the B99, all of them are going to be okay. So what happens if I make some changes to the conditions? What I'll do is I'll just make it a little bit nastier on the road design side. I'll just lift things up a little bit. And then if I run the compliance check, I still have everything okay, so I'll lift it up a bit more. So I'm actually trying to cause myself a little bit of grief in the design. Nope. Higher, Shane. Make it even higher. Alright, that should give me a fair bit of grief, hopefully. No, all these kind of ways still work. So the compliance checker will basically identify when I have a problem. So when it is that the driveway clearance doesn't work. And it keeps working for me. Let me just put a driveway, what I'll do is I'll just draw another polyline out here where I should definitely have a problem because it's going to be quite tight. I'll turn that into a driveway by using the create tool. And now if I run the compliance check, oh, there we go. Suddenly we have lots of clashes. So it looks like I had a bit of a refresh issue, but I've now got lots of clashes going on. So everywhere that I have a problem, I've got a little cross, and that's an indicator for me to go back and have a look at that design and make sure that that design's working okay. If I run the compliance check again, still lots of clashes. If I just refresh my model here. Yep, okay. So it looks like we've got a little bit of a tight amp issue to do here, but if I just refresh the driveways and compliance check, I'll now see I've got 3 of them that don't quite work. Okay, that becomes your alarm bell. That becomes your notification. You better go and check at least these 3 driveways and check what's going on in terms of clearance. So B85 works for this driveway, but I'm guessing the B99 has a little bit of a clash here. So I can see that I actually hit at the start here. If I just drop in an extra IP, try and sort of pull that out, I can then fix my problem. So this is one way to address driveway clearance issues. If I now run the compliance check, I see that that compliance issue goes away. What about this driveway at the northern side? If I have a bit of a look at this one, let's see if it's as bad as the others to try and fix up. You will get occasions where changing the levels just doesn't really cut it. In this case, it's probably okay for me just to change the driveway design, but you'll get issues where the driveway design just still doesn't work no matter what you do with the levels. And the reality is you might need to change the layback for this particular driveway, or for this one on the south here where it's quite dreadful to try and get around. So maybe for this driveway, if I look at the design of this one, you know, this is very severe. I probably can't do anything with it anyway, but maybe if I had a different layback, it would be easier. Maybe if I got rid of the invert, drop down, flatten this out somehow, you know, maybe I might be able to do something with it. You can actually change the behaviour of any of the individual driveways to have a different layback or different offset conditions. So maybe with this particular driveway, I actually need to work back into the property. So maybe what I need to do is work out, you know, how far in I need to go. So maybe I need 18 metres here from the centre line in order to make this driveway work. You can go to individual driveways by using the Edit Properties command, and you can attack individual driveways and change the behaviour. So for this one driveway, I want to connect to the edge of bitumen instead. I want to change my layback to use the Belmont layback. We'll make one ourselves later on. I might also want not to use the polyline for the offset, but to actually specify 18 metres for my driveway offset. So I'm editing an individual driveway, different layback, different edge connection conditions, different end connection conditions. So now when I look at that driveway using the design button, I've now got a bigger distance to play with, and I've now got a very different layback attached to the invert. It doesn't really make sense, the layback that I've attached, because I really should have made one that had an edge as well. But now when I check my clearance, I'll have a different, set of issues here. So I've probably got a lot more space to play with for me to stick in some panels and fix up the grading issue that otherwise I couldn't fix up. So you can go to individual driveways, change the, which is the connection conditions. You can change the type of shape you put on at the start, and also the connection off that road. So you can actually put in a fair bit of variability. So let's have a bit of a look at some of that setup. Maybe for this one, I've actually got here a garage pad. For this particular driveway, it needs to connect to the garage pad. So I'm going to come in here. I'm going to say, okay, go out 10 metres. That's fine. Actually, maybe I should do a polyline. Do I have a polyline here? Okay, let's draw a quick polyline. There's the edge of the carport. So I'm going to edit this particular driveway. Now, one thing to be very careful of, don't put any polylines on the same layer as the driveway layer unless you're going to use it for a driveway. So just caught myself one there, right there where I could have had an issue. Edit properties, I'm going to grab this driveway, and I'm going to, in this case, leave it with the standard layback. I'm going to, however, connect to the garage for the end of the driveway. Okay, so I'm targeting the garage as my connection. I will also show, and I'm also going to change the left side to use this polyline for the driveway edge. So if I now look at this in the design panel, I can see that I'm actually connecting up not to the existing surface, but to a designed pad. So if you are designing your driveway entry points, if you're doing work inside a property or subdivision and you've designed some pad areas for some garage entries, you can actually decide to connect to those instead of the natural surface. And that's really what this allows us to do. Okay, so you can see we're connecting up to a design pad as opposed to the natural. Okay, so that was a quick sort of tour on the basics of setting up driveways and checking them and making sure that they can be designed and work. In terms of establishing some of your own controls, input controls and output controls, we still haven't really gone into we haven't actually at all gone into the long section plotting, which I will get to after we do some more on the mechanics. We actually have the ability to set up our own shapes. These are the laybacks. All right, so I'll quickly just go in and talk to you about setting up a layback. I'm going to make a layback. I'll just quickly show you in the PowerPoint here what my intentions are. So when it comes to editing driveways, we've done most of these. You can go and change the code to connect to the property, boundary, extents, surface. You can also change your layback. So this is actually a screenshot of a traditional layback and then what's called a notched invert layback. I found out about these in Tasmania, where what they needed to do was pretty much get rid of the invert because they couldn't get vehicle clearance because it was too tight. So they had this idea of a notched layback. Now, you can do this properly. You could do it very simply. If I was designing this for vehicle clearance, I would do a straight line from this point to that point. Or I'd have, whatever the grade break was in here. But the idea is that we're going to get rid of the lip. We're going to get rid of the invert and replace the way to do that would be to create a new layback. So I'll show you what a traditional one looks like. So here's a layback, 600mm wide with a 30mm lip. So you see there's a 30mm push out, a 30mm height change, a code. 570 from there, 70mm lift. So we're doing a total lift of 100mm. This layback is intended to connect to an invert. All right. I'm going to make a new one. I'm going to call this one a notched layback. And very simply, I'm going to go out, let's say the normal distance I go out to the tray, let's say 400mm. I'm going to do a height difference of 40mm, and that's, normally the invert, but it's not. I'm then going to go out an extra 600 with a height lift of 0.04 again, and this is the back of the curb. So what I'm doing is I'm designing a very different layback. If I now go and edit my driveway, let's say this one, and I'm going to connect the edge of bitumen instead of the invert, I'm going to apply my notched layback. So when I look at this individual driveway, this one in particular is a notched curb. Okay, so I've pulled out the invert, replaced it with a simulation where I can run the vehicle across and do a bit of a check. Right, and I actually caused myself a bit of grief. I'd throw an IP in here to fix that up. Okay, so that's you changing your individual layback shapes. You can also set up your own clearance templates. Now, it's pretty industrial the way this is set up, but it works very much like joining the dots. What you assume in your design is that 0, 0 is at the back corner of a vehicle. You've got a distance to go to the back wheel base and a distance to go to the front wheel base. If I just show you the B85 or the B99, you'll see that the rear wheelbase distance from the back of the vehicle is 0.92 and then 3.7 to the front. Everything else you see in here in terms of X and Y is defining a coordinate for the start of a line and a coordinate for the end of a line. And it's all relative to 0, 0 being at the back of the vehicle. If I made one very basic, this is just a basic underside of a vehicle, and I'm just going to make it up here. I'm going to do my rear wheels to be 1 meter from the back, 4 meters to the front. I'm going to say right at the back of the vehicle, so X of 0, I'm actually going to be 150mm above the ground. And then when I get half a meter further in, I'm going to be 100mm off the ground. So I'm drawing a line essentially. I go from that half a meter in, 100mm off the ground. I'm going to go 4.5 meters across. That's going to take me all the way past the front wheels at 100mm. And then I'm going to go from the 4.5 meters across with 100mm height. And I'm going to go 5 meters at 0.21. So all of these distances are measured from the back of the vehicle. Okay, but what I've done is drawn 3 lines, essentially. I'm going to now open up one of these driveways, and I'm going to run that vehicle against it. So if I come in here, I can now pick, here's the trick. I need to edit my properties here and add to this the vehicle that I just made. By design, I'll have in my arsenal the basic underside of a vehicle. And if we have a quick look at that, I'll actually draw the vehicle so you can see it. There's my very basic design. Okay. All right, if I just show it in the forward direction, so we get rid of the reverse here. All right, it still shows me both shapes there, but I've got a front end and I've got a back end, all right, and it's pushing that shape across the system. That was me making a basic template for routing a vehicle. Now, these extra ones that you see in here, these cool ones about stop truck distance, stop car distance, these were put together by just looking in the guide to general distance, to an observed height at start, and a vehicle height, or vehicle height at start, observed height at the end. If you want to get access to those vehicle template types, what you need to do is you need to go to www.advancedroaddesign.com.au. So this is our webpage, and over on the right here, there's a link to go to the ARD blog. So the ARD blog, which hopefully you do get notification of, has a whole heap of really cool stuff about what's changed in the software and some things you can do in the software. If you actually scroll down through the list of items, you'll actually find that there's an article here about using driveway checking tools for sight distance. So if you do want access to the enhanced list and you haven't made your own list because you have to replace, it tells you everything you need to do right here. Okay, and that's the file that you would download. Okay, back to normal programming here. So what we've looked at creating driveways, moving them around, moving the design, surface design around for your road, seeing the impact of that. We've run the clearance check as a quick checker. We've looked at changing the layback at the start of a road. We haven't looked at layback at the end of a driveway. I will show you that. It really is the same as putting it at the start. It's just done in reverse. Layback at the end of let's go with a footpath 1.5 metre wide. So there's a template describing a footpath with a verge. If I now look at this particular driveway and design it, you see these IPs here, they're all locked and they've come from a footpath template that's been applied. So this shape here, this layback, is what's controlling what happens just before the property connection point. Okay, so you can throw that shape at the start or at the end. Let's have a quick look at the plotting output. So you can go to any of these vertical driveway checking runs. You can make sure that they all work. You can change the layback. You can check different vehicles of your own devising. At this stage, we're not dealing with articulated vehicles, so we're not handling a trailer. We're not handling a truck movement where there's multiple axles. It's really 2 points of connection at this stage. But let's look at the plotting side of things. So we're going to generate some long sections for our driveways. What you're going to see is a precursor to, I guess, what we're planning to do with long section and cross section outputs for road design. So some of the facilities you see when I run the long section tool and the structure are similar to what we're planning to do when we roll out the new long section and cross section plotting tools for advanced road design. I will say for those of you who have been waiting a long time for these tools, the developers right now are working up the new cross-section plotting. So that is currently what we're developing, a new cross-section plotting engine. From that and from what we do in there will come the long-section engine as well. But it is in development right now. But let's run the driveway long-section plotting. So we click on long sections. Okay, so a couple of differences between what happens in here and what happens in current plotting. The form is modeless, so you can go and zoom in and pan onto anything. You're not sort of limited to a special button from just through the layout. At this stage, we put all the driveways on, I guess, one layout tab. We certainly can expand that out into plot to file and multiple layout tabs, but we're arranging them on one layout tab. Now, the interface is different to what you have in current long section plotting. We've reduced the buttons down the bottom, and we've done that by always having what we call basic settings. So what I might do is review what's here and make some edits. In terms of what you see in the output, this is the standard output when you first run your driveway plot. As per current plotting outputs, you can certainly save your own styles and load your own styles of presentation. So you're not locked into what we show you here by any means. This is just a starting point. On the long section that you see here, you've got chainage, existing levels, design levels, and we're also showing the vehicle clearance line, which is this guy here, and the design of the driveway. So the design of the driveway happens by clicking on profile. Chainages is purely to show the change information, and then drive clearance button here will show the drive clearance. Now, we're doing things in one sense quite similar to the old way of doing things. You've got a series of entries in a list here, and each of these entries drives some aspect of display. So the offsets entry here, for instance, controls the chainage. If I wanted to move that up the list or up in the rows, I've got to move it down in this list. And as soon as I do that, it will then update straight away. Okay, so if I do that again, then the chainage will move straight away. Okay, so as you make changes in here, we're trying to be a lot more reactive to show you what the impacts of those changes are. Now, a little bit different, the basic settings entry will always be there no matter what you do. You can't delete the basic settings entry. What this outlines is the general behavior of the system. So the horizontal scale, the vertical scale, I'll make that a little bit flatter. I'll make it steeper. It sets up the title block, also sets up the spacings between these, the band height by default, which I'll make 25 in this case. There's also some spacings for VC grade lines. This stuff is in development, so I won't sort of harp on about what those two items do. If we look at the datum specification, this controls the information here with the RL, so rounding, minimum distance from the bottom up, so let's make that say 5. Actually, what was it? Anyway, I'll leave it at 5, we'll see what it does. Fixed datum. You've also got your datum drawing, okay, so this is drawing this RL text. So very similar to what you had. I'll put an M at the back here for something different. A little bit of offsets, some cranking controls. Again, those two are in development. Okay, in terms of width and text, this is cool news. If you wanted to move this text around relative to the top right corner, you could, say I want that 2.5 off the top edge here, and basically you're pushing that text around a little bit. As soon as I click OK, you'll see that those bands are a little bit different, a little bit taller, but you'll see that text offset's changed. The driveways are flattened out and stretched out a bit. Some of them don't quite fit. We can rearrange that later on. In terms of the other information, if I double click on, say, profile existing, which is the existing levels, I can double click to edit that entry. Now, where things have changed or where they're changing in the software, if you have a look, we're currently only able to pick the current driveway, but when we expand this out, you'll be able to pick whatever object you want. Once you pick existing or design, it actually has an influence on what tabs you see up the top and what options you have down the bottom. So if this is the design VC, I could actually opt to show the VC details, or I could turn them off and disengage that tab. If I untick Show Row Band, I'll get rid of that tab as well. So you're only getting information about what you want to see. So down the bottom here, I do want to show the band for the design VC levels. I want to show the long section line on a certain layer. I want to have a certain vertical offset. Okay, so you've now got a lot more control about what layers you want things to be on, how you want them to do. I think a lot easier that you tick what you want and then you get the detail at that point. I'll go back to existing centerline for this. I want to show NS, that's fine, click OK. You can see I just changed the layer of that. The design VC is important because that's controlling the presentation of your driveway design. What's, I guess, a little bit different in here, if you have a look at the plot envelopes entry, if I just delete that, they're the driveway designs, and there's the existing surface. One thing I do want to say about the driveways, at the moment, we're not filtering the sampling, so the sampling is coming off the grade breaks of the design. That's something we need to work on, but at this stage we don't filter that. If we click on drive clearances, I might want to show the B99 vehicle. I want to show the forward direction. I want to put on a certain layer. I've got an increment to check. And I want to add some text with the vehicle name. I want that to go on a certain layer with a certain height and a certain text style. And I want to put, and I want to have that on the right. Once I click OK, I'll see that update immediately with the layer control, with the line work based on that sampling regime. When you want to plot, pretty much you go plot to layout and it creates that layout as we go. So as a quick sort of show on the long section plotting, there's certainly improvements still to make on particularly the filtering, some of the arrangements here. I think once we get our formal long section plotting sorted out, we'll take that learning and those improvements and we'll roll them back into the software proper here. Title information I won't go into, but that just adds title down the bottom here. Actually, maybe I should go into it. A couple of cool things you can do. You can actually stack the text onto multiple lines. You can pick and choose what you want to show. So I might want the scale here on layer 3. I might want to put horizontal scale. And then I might want to also put on line 3 the vertical scale. And after that bit of text, I might want to put a comma, underscores a space. After I define the road name, I want a comma and a space as well. So you can specify what layer each of the lines should go on. You can also specify what text style and what size the text should be. So I'll just do a little bit of a cascading size so you can see the impact of that. I'm going to set the space between each line to be 0.5 units. Once I click OK, you can now see, you get that cascading text. So there's a little bit more control on the title than there used to be. Okay, so just go back to my PowerPoint. We've just gone through the settings. We had a look at the laybacks. We had a look at the vehicle clearance shapes. We had a look at plotting. Just looking a little bit further forward, picking up some customer input to date. Certainly, the way we look at the driveway clearances is to use a pin approach for the wheels. There's been some customer requests to somehow, more accurately represent the fact the wheels have a radius. So we are looking at options for how to deal with that. One approach is to have dual laybacks that get applied. One detailed layback is what we draw, and then a simplified one that the user can edit to simulate how the wheel's going to roll, because it won't roll into that bull nose, it will roll over the top of it. So that's one approach to dealing with the fact we're doing a pinprick approach instead of a wheel approach. There's certainly been some requests to do driveway modelling, so incorporate the driveway into the full surface model. So that's something that we've got on the books for a future improvement. At this stage, if you do want to do driveway modelling, you really need to create a string or a road and put it into the system that way. Certainly people have asked for some more plotting control, which, as I said, I think will be aligned with improvements we're making to the road long section plotting. But certainly selected sections to be put onto driveways. There's certainly been a couple of requests to put a block on the long section to represent a vehicle. I think that would be easy to do at 1:1 scale. I think it'd be somewhat more awkward at a 10:1 or 20:1 scale. But certainly we take on board that request. There's also requests out there for multiple axle, so to deal with trailers, articulated trucks. They're the things that people have asked for as improvements. We certainly welcome your input into the driveway tool, whether you use it, whether you don't use it, whether you will after this webcast or whether you won't, what you like about it, what you don't. But look, that sort of rounds out what I wanted to cover. Hopefully you've seen enough detail in the driveway tools to get sort of an idea about how it works. I'm going to open up the session here for any questions. So has anybody got any questions? If you do, throw them in the chat or in the Q&A. Andrew, have any questions come through?
No, Shane, no questions throughout the session. You're very thorough. But, if anyone has any questions, feel free to pop them into either the chat window or the Q&A window on the right-hand side.
All right. Andrew, no questions have come in yet?
No questions.
All right, terrific. Well, look, thank you, everybody. If you do have any comments or queries following on from this webcast, don't hesitate to get in contact with us. You can use the support portal or give us a call. And look, thanks for attending the session. I hope you all got something out of it, and look forward to running a webcast with you